Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Oxnard Live. I'm your host, Daniel Chavez Jr. Today, our show is going to be a little bit different as we don't have a guest, but instead, we'll be focusing on 5 things that you, as an Oxnard resident, need to know about that ultimately will affect your life. And well, let's just talk about them because there are five important things that you need to know as a resident of Oxnard, and of course, there's tons of different items to talk about. But let's just jump right into it as we discuss 5 items that you, as an Oxnard resident, need to learn about. So we're calling this segment Fast Five. 5 items coming at you real quick so that we can discuss them, the pros, the cons, the personal opinions of myself. And again, because Oxnard Live is fully interactive, we encourage all of our viewers to submit a question, add a comment, and participate in any way possible. So let's get right to it. First item is the Oxnard and Camarillo Chamber of Commerce merger. Recently, the city of Oxnard and city of Camarillo both have the respective chamber of commerce. Last year, we had Nancy Lindholm, the president and the CEO of the Oxnard Chamber of Commerce, join us and talk about the chamber's role on how it supports businesses, as well as how it is not a government agency, but in fact, a nonprofit organization. So why merge with another nonprofit? Well, like COVID-19 affected everybody, the Chamber of Commerce were not exempt from that. So the chambers both made the decision to merge together and form one new chamber called the West Ventura County Business Alliance. They will be representing businesses throughout the city of Oxnard and Camarillo, which only increases the advocacy that the chambers is known for. The Chamber of Commerce have been on the forefront of addressing many issues where certain policies may be coming down from the state or from the federal government, or even right here in our own backyard in the city of Oxnard. They have been on the forefront to talk about how it can't go through or it needs to be adjusted, or otherwise it's going to have a negative effect on businesses. Or there's been those times where they supported what the city was trying to accomplish. So now it just means that voice is getting louder and more businesses are going to be able to support them. So I give this one a thumbs up because it really increases and expands the business influence. Number 4, recently the city council agreed to accept a donation. As you see in the picture, this is one of those special enforcement vehicles, or commonly known as SWAT, that the city of Oxnard is receiving as a donation. Of course, in the staff report, they gave a monetary dollar amount, but the city doesn't pay anything for it. Currently, the Oxnard Police Department does have a vehicle like this, but that vehicle is over 15 years old and it is only used at times where it's actually warranted for it, such as a barricade person or any other item that regular vehicle can't accomplish, and that the special enforcement unit, essentially SWAT, has to go and respond to. There was a lot of outcries as to that the city of Oxnard shouldn't receive this donation, that instead the money should be used for other services. You're right for a small part. The city does have a responsibility to provide certain services, but as a donation come to the city wouldn't have received the money regardless. So whether they accept the vehicle or not, that money wasn't going to come to the city and be thrown into the general fund. This was a donation to the Oxnard Police Department to replace their current vehicle. And as announced during the city council meeting by the chief of police, Jason Benitez, that this is not a vehicle that does routine patrols. You won't see it going down Oxnard Boulevard cruising. It is only going out for special calls that requires the special enforcement unit, the the SEU. So it's intimidating, but it is for the protection of the officers. For those that remember back in the 90s, where the bank robbery in LAPD at the Bank of America, they were outgunned. They had no equipment to combat these individuals, and a lot of officers were injured as a result of it. This is a resource, a tool for them to be able to perform their duties in those extreme situations. So this is a good thing. Doesn't cost the city any money. It's ultimately a free donation. And then once the department deems that it already reached its lifespan, it goes right back to the person that donated, hands clean of the city. Can't go wrong with that. And it's free. Next one, Oxnard defeats Measure M and N for now. If you recall back in 2020, Measure M and N were one of 4 measure ballots that were proposed by Oxnard resident Aaron Starr. As we all know, Aaron Starr is no stranger to putting ballot measures up for Oxnard voters to vote on. But what was so important about Measure M and Measure N? And what was the judge's preliminary ruling? Well, Measure M was the measure that put restrictions on how meetings were conducted in the city of Oxnard. They couldn't start before 5 o'clock. They could not have live presentations. All the presentations had to be pre-recorded, posted online, and the residents had to go and review them. Even though we have the Sunshine Ordinance that posts items 12 days before the actual council meeting, 7 days before citizen advisory groups, Aaron Starr felt that this was necessary. It also said that you couldn't limit anybody less than 3 minutes during public comments. So everybody would be guaranteed to have 3 minutes. And it also said that you had to follow Robert's Rules of Order. Now, I will admit that there were some good things about it, but then there was also negative things about that. Measure M created essentially a disadvantage for those residents that did not have the time to view the city council videos that were posted, or any video that was posted, because staff was not allowed to present live in the chambers. So what does this mean? It meant that for those residents that weren't able to view the video prior to the meeting, had no idea what was going on. That's a bad thing. I understand what Mr. Starr was saying about how it was supposed to limit the opportunities for staff to change the presentation midway or in real time. But at the same time, residents did not have the opportunity to go view. If you go back and look at the number of views for those videos, they're low. Many of them 5, 15, 20 views. Not the big number that you would expect. But Measure M was deemed that it impeded the city's ability to conduct its daily business. Measure N. We all know that Measure N was the one that said that the city had to meet certain PCI conditions in order to keep Measure O. If you recall, Measure O was the general tax that voters in 2008 voted in favor of, and that it is to be sunsetting in 2028. So essentially, Measure O, which is allowed to be spent on anything, fire trucks, youth services, homeless, roads, parks, medians, whatever you want, Measure O was allowed to be paid for. But what Measure N did was that it said that you have to spend this amount of money on roads. If you did not spend this money on roads to get them up to a certain standard, Measure O was going to sunset sooner than what the voters voted on. But if the city did indeed meet those standards, the city was allowed to extend Measure O by 5 years. The judge ruled that you can't change a general tax and put restrictions on it. You just can't do that. So preliminary, or right now, Measure M and Measure M and N are both defeated. But it definitely is expected that Mr. Starr and his legal team will challenge the judge's decision. So this seems to be the year of recalls. We see the recall in LA County DA George Gascon, recall of LA City Council member Mike Bonin, recall efforts for Ventura County Supervisor Linda Parks, and the most high profile one, recall of California Governor Gavin Newsom, which is already set. It has a set date of September 14th of this year. And mail-in ballots are expected to go out mid-August. So how did the recall come about? Why did the recall come about? Well, it kind of depends on who you ask. If you ask one group of people, they'll say it's because of his stances and policies on crime, on homeless, on infrastructure, on taxes, that they felt that he failed. If you ask another group, it would be that his abuse of power for COVID-19 restrictions, of shutting down California when other states were slowly reopening or not shutting down completely. So it kind of depends on who you're asking. A lot of people felt that during the emergency power that he abused it. He overstepped what his power allowed him to do, that he was essentially cutting out the legislature, the assembly, the state senators, cutting them out from decisions and unilaterally making all these decisions on his own. You look at the other side where they're saying that he essentially was too soft on crime, did nothing to address the homeless, having crumbling infrastructure. And now, as you're hearing, we are on the brink of experiencing rolling blackouts because we get our energy from another state and that we're running out of water. Bad policies all around. But one thing is for sure, that he was also in the news of suing his recently appointed Secretary of State, Dr. Weber. He appointed her to the position of Secretary of the State after Alex Padilla was appointed to fill the vacant seat as the US Senator after Kamala Harris was elected Vice President. But why did he sue the Secretary of State? A law that he signed back in 2019 that said that any individual that is a target of a recall must file by a certain date after the notification of a recall to place their party affiliation. Well, Governor Newsom, a year later, realized that he did not submit the paperwork. Mind you, this was a law that he signed, and that the California Assembly and the Senate pushed forward. So he ultimately sued the Secretary of State saying, I want to put Democrat or D, whatever way that they end up wording it on the ballot, and the judge ruled against him. So you won't see Democrat or the letter D next to his name on the ballot. Now, there are some speculations that people are saying that they may not understand that he's actually a Democrat, that they may not vote for him, that he may actually get recalled. But we'll find out on September 14th as Oxnard residents join hundreds and thousands and billions of Californians across the state on the September 14th recall election. Once again, Mr. Starr, our favorite person, Aaron Starr sues the state of California. Now, I'm pretty sure you're wondering, sues the state of California? Did he get tired of suing Oxnard? The reality was that he is suing the state of California in regards to AB 5, where it says that it took essentially those jobs that were typically contractor jobs, and now you have to classify them as employees. His argument is that you are infringing on the First Amendment right for political purposes, and that you can't really force people to pay them as employees, because a door-to-door salesperson is not an employee, it's a contractor. And that's the same way that paid signature gatherers should be classified as. So it would be very interesting to see what happens. He has made the comments multiple times that he has both volunteer and paid signature gatherers, but it is impossible to have only volunteer signature gatherers gather all the signatures that he typically needs for measure ballots that usually are over 12,000. So it would be very interesting to see what the judges rule in this particular case. Are they going to change AB5, even though on the last election, AB5 was challenged and it failed? So I see a very difficult time trying to overturn AB5, but we will see what happens. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was your Fast Five. 5 things that you need to learn and know about as an Oxnard resident. Chamber of Commerce, if you're a business in the city of Oxnard or the city of Camarillo, now you belong to, or can belong to, the West Ventura County Business Alliance. City Council is accepting a donation of a new SEU vehicle. California recall taking place on September 14th. Ballot measures M and N defeated for now until Aaron Starr's legal team end up challenging. And lastly, Aaron Starr sues the state of California in regards to AB5. So let me know what else you want to know about the Fast Five. Did you have questions? Always be sure to interact with us right here on Oxnard Live. Send us an email at oxnardlive20@gmail.com or visit our website, oxnardlive.net. This was Oxnard Live Fast Five. Be sure to join us next week as we have former Mayor Pro Tem and current chair of the Ventura County Climate Emergency Council, Sylvia Munoz-Snop, join us as we talk about growing up in Oxnard, because she actually is a native Oxnard resident and then moved into Powanimi and served on the city council for 12 years. What are her plans? How is her job as a professor at Oxnard College going, and what new adventures are popping up? That's right here on Oxnard Live at 4 p.m. All live and 100% real.